Today I'll talk about the debate between Thunderf00t and Eric Hovind that happened back in 2012 at the recent rally. This was an interesting conversation to me because it made me think about what observations we rely on in science and in everyday life. We tend to go through life as if we have certainty of the common things we see or believe, but if Thunderf00t is correct, our knowledge of the world relies on several crucial assumptions. During the conversation between the two men, Hovind tries to show that Thunderf00t has no basis for any knowledge at all, unless he believes in God. He begins by asking Thunderf00t how he knows anything about the universe. Thunderf00t's reply is that he relies on the scientific method, a method which is based on three assumptions. Here I'll let Thunderf00t list these assumptions out himself.
Every single person, three assumptions. The universe exists, you can learn something about it. Models with predictive capability are more useful than models without predictive capability.
Thunderf00t explains to Hovind that science is carried out by evaluating scientific hypotheses, not in terms of the truth or falsity, but in terms of the ability to explain and forecast observations. For Thunderf00t, absolute certainty can never be achieved because we can be wrong, and in his words, observations can be inaccurate. How does Hovind react to this? He finds this ridiculous. For him, it's absurd for anyone to say that their knowledge of the world is based on assumptions rather than certainty.
That's not a consistent model. You don't live your life by that model.
Yeah, I do.
You live as if this world doesn't exist.
It's necessary.
So you live as if this world may not even exist.
Yeah.
Does that not sound really, really weird to you? Because I guarantee you, when you're eating food, you're not going, you know what? This thing may not even exist, but I'm going to eat it anyway.
We can see that according to Hovind, to know something requires that you must be infallible about it. And since Thunderf00t admits that he can be wrong, according to Hovind, Thunderf00t cannot even know the basic facts of life. Now we see the outline of Hovind's strategy. He sets the bar for knowledge impossibly high, and accuses Thunderf00t of not reaching the bar. But can Hovind meet the standard he sets? Or is he, as Thunderf00t points out, relying on just as many assumptions, if not more? Let me begin by exploring Thunderf00t's position. Is Thunderf00t correct to say that our knowledge of the world is built upon assumptions rather than certainty? The answer, I believe, is yes. This is why. Despite the vast amounts of evidence we have, there will always be the possibility that we are wrong. Evidence and data can make a certain hypothesis more likely than its competing ones, but we must always be open to the possibility that new evidence may refute our existing beliefs. History is littered with many once widely held scientific theories, only to be refined or proven false by new data. For example, Newtonian physics is refined by relativistic physics, and the plum pudding theory of atom is replaced with a succession of more accurate models of the atom. Now Hovind considered it weird not to live life under complete certainty of the universe's existence. But consider this. How much complete certainty do we really have of the things around us? Are we ever absolutely sure that the food we eat will not make us ill? Or the car we drive will be safe? The fact is that we are always living our lives under some level of uncertainty. We take calculated risks and generally do not fear things that rarely happen. Thunderf00t can we simply say that the universe's existence may just be one of these things we live without complete certainty. Furthermore, there are certain hypotheses that no matter how much evidence we have, we cannot rule them out in principle. These are known as skeptical hypotheses. They are almost always fanciful, and they share the common characteristic of being unfalsifiable. The premise of the Matrix trilogy is one popular example. In the movie's premise, humans are made to believe they are living in a human society, when they're actually living in vats, with their experiences created by a sophisticated computer. A more classical example is Descartes' evil demon. In his Meditations on First Philosophy, Descartes imagined the possibility of a powerful demon who is messing with his mind and misleading him about everything he thinks and knows. If all this sounds outlandish, consider the hypothesis proposed by some creationists. The idea that God created the universe only a few thousand years ago. But in order to test our faith, he put in dinosaur bones, extinct volcanoes, stars and galaxies, and every other sign that would show our universe to have a longer history. All of these hypotheses share one thing in common. No amount of observations can falsify them, and it contributes nothing to the understanding of the world around us, and nothing to the development of technology. Now the question is, do we have to rule out these fanciful hypotheses before we can say we know anything? Do we have to have absolute certainty before we can talk intelligently about the world? This is a question debated by philosophers, but for scientists such as Thunderf00t, we can safely bypass them and concede for now that our knowledge relies on several assumptions. We have heard Thunderf00t's assumptions already. Other scientists and philosophers have proposed similar assumptions. For example, biologist Stephen Jay Gould have cited this constancy of nature's laws, i.e., the laws of nature do not change over time and space. Contrary to Hovind's derision, these assumptions are not absurd. In fact, they are necessary not only to the scientific method, but also to our mundane, everyday reasoning and perception of the world. As Thunderf00t points out, Hovind is making at least as many assumptions as Thunderf00t does. To illustrate this, consider the question, how does Hovind know that God exists? Since Hovind would never say that his belief in God is itself just an assumption, he would have to say that he inferred it from the Bible, from the physical evidence he perceived, or his supposed personal communications with God. And indeed, that is what he says. But now he's faced with the same problem that Thunderf00t faced. How does Hovind know that all his physical evidence, his memories of reading the Bible, and his supposed communications with God are real and not produced by a giant computer, or that he's not being deceived by Descartes' evil demon? He would have to make assumptions. Assumptions that his senses and memories are generally reliable, that the laws of the universe are simple and constant, that unfalsifiable hypotheses such as that of the Matrix trilogy are almost certainly false. In other words, Hovind has to either assume God's existence, or he has to assume, as Thunderf00t does, that the universe is orderly and understandable. So now we have it. Hovind is in fact short of the same standard he sets for Thunderf00t. He is no more certain of the things he believes in than Thunderf00t is. The only difference being, while Thunderf00t is intellectually honest about the limitations of his knowledge, Hovind is in denial. He is a pot who has called the kettle black. And as to the question of whether we should trust the scientific method and its assumptions, I'll end this video by playing Richard Dawkins' response when asked a similar question.
So how do we justify, as it were, faith that science will give us the truth? Is that the...
Please.
How do you justify scientific method?
Yes.
Basically, what he said.
It works. It works. Planes fly, cars drive, computers compute.
It's an inductive argument.
If you base medicine on science, you cure people. If you base the design of planes on science, they fly. If you base the design of rockets on science, they reach the moon. It works, bitches.